They actually did it. They went down there, they dug up the bones, they uprooted the tree, they had the plan, they had the people, they had everything lined up. And Freville still won. Because that is what episode 10 of From Season 4 just did to us. It did not just raise the stakes. It did not just turn up the tension. It took everything our survivors built over the course of this entire season, every theory, every alliance, every desperate gamble, and it lit it on fire right in front of our faces. And then it made us watch. And the worst part, the most gut-wrenching, absolutely brutal part of this entire finale, it was not a monster that caused the most damage. It was not the earthquake. It was not the red lightning, or the chaos in the tunnels, or Jade and Tabitha being left stranded underground with no way out. The most devastating blow this episode delivered came quietly. It came in a clinic, and it came at the hands of Smiley. And by the time it was over, one of the most beloved characters this show has ever given us was gone. Gone in a way that this audience is not going to recover from anytime soon. Marielle is dead. She died in Christy's arms. And I need you to really sit with that for a second before we go any further, because this was not a background character. This was not someone the show sacrificed to remind us that Freville is dangerous. We already knew Freville was dangerous. Marielle was someone we cared about. She was someone Christy cared about. And the way she went, the earthquake dislodging the talisman at the clinic, Smiley walking straight in, doing what Smiley does, it was the kind of death that this show reserves for the moments it truly wants to hurt you. And it worked. It absolutely worked. But Marielle's death is only one piece of what episode 10 delivered. Because while that was happening in the clinic, Jade and Tabitha were trapped underground with no rope ladder and no way out, because Sophia sabotaged it. Sophia, who we have been watching and wondering about and trying to figure out all season, made her move. And the move she made was as cold and calculated as anything this show has ever given a villain. She did not attack anyone directly. She did not need to. She just removed the one thing that was going to get Jade and Tabitha back to the surface. And in doing so, she may have just changed the entire trajectory of this story heading into season 5. And then there is the bottle tree. The tree that the townspeople literally ripped out of the ground as part of the plan. The tree that briefly let light into the cavern to hold the monsters back. The same tree whose removal caused the earthquake that killed Marielle. Think about that chain of events for a moment. The plan that was supposed to save everyone is directly connected to the death of someone everyone loved. That is not a coincidence. That is this show telling us in the clearest possible language that there is no free action in Freville. Every move has a cost. Every gamble has a consequence. And the bone heist, for all its ambition and all its heart, cost this town more than it gained. At least for now. So, today we are going to break down everything that happened in the season 4 finale of From. We are going to talk about the bone heist, what went right, what went catastrophically wrong, and what it all means. We are going to talk about Marielle and what her death means for Christy going into season 5. We are going to talk about Sophia, what she did, and what she is really after. And we are going to talk about where Jade and Tabitha go from here. Trapped underground at the end of a season that gave us no clean resolution and every reason to be terrified about what is coming next. Let's get into it. Let quotes start at the beginning. Because the bone heist was not just a plot event in episode 10, it was the culmination of everything this entire season has been building toward. Every clue Jade followed, every vision he had, every conversation between him and Tabitha about what the symbol meant and what the bones represented, and why the children buried in that cavern beneath the bottle tree were the key to breaking the cycle that has been trapping people in Freville for God knows how long. All of it pointed here. All of it pointed to this plan. And for a moment, just a moment, it actually looked like it was going to work. Jade and Tabitha descended into that cavern and they found the bones. And I want to give this show credit for how it built that sequence, because the tension of that descent was real. These are two people going into the single most dangerous place in Freville, armed with a talisman and a plan and not much else, trusting that Boyd and the crew up top are going to do their part, and that everything is going to hold together long enough for them to get back out. And they found the bones, they dug them up, and for one brief moment the plan was working exactly the way it was supposed to. But here is the thing about Freville. The moment you think something is working, that is exactly when the town shows you who is actually in control. Because the monsters woke up the second those bones were in hand. Not gradually, led with warning. The moment Jade and Tabitha had what they came for, the cavern became a very different place. And suddenly the plan that had looked so clean and so possible started showing every crack it had been hiding. Because a plan that works perfectly in theory is one thing. A plan that has to hold together while monsters are closing in, and an earthquake is beginning to shake the ground is something else entirely. And that earthquake, that is the detail I cannot stop thinking about. Because the earthquake was not a random event. The earthquake was a direct consequence of the townspeople uprooting the bottle tree. That tree was not just a physical object sitting in the ground. It was connected to something. It was holding something in place. And when Boyd and the crew pulled it out of the ground, they released whatever tension had been built up inside it. And the earth responded. The ground shook. And that shaking, that single consequence of the plan they had so carefully constructed, traveled all the way to the clinic, and it found the talisman, and it knocked it loose. And everything that happened after that in the clinic is a direct result of the decision to uproot the bottle tree. This is the thing that makes from such a uniquely painful show to watch sometimes. Because the people making these decisions are not stupid. They are not reckless. Boyd is one of the most careful, experienced, battle-hardened survivors this town has ever seen. Jade has been following this mystery with more intelligence and dedication than almost anyone. Tabitha has been driven by a mother's love and a genuine belief that what she was doing was right. These are good people making the best decisions they could with the information they had, and Freville punished them anyway, not because they were wrong to try, but because this place has a rule that seems to operate above every other rule. Knowledge comes at a cost, action comes at a cost. And the cost of the bone heist was one that none of them knew they were agreeing to pay. Now up top, while all of this was unfolding underground, Boyd was leading the effort to pull the tree out of the ground. And there is something almost unbearably tense about that image. A group of desperate people using everything they have, physically pulling a massive tree out of the earth because the man they trust told them it was the only way. No plan. Boyd said it himself. There was no plan B. And when the ground started shaking and things started going wrong, that absence of a plan B stopped being a statement of confidence and started being a description of a trap. Because when you have no fallback and the primary plan starts to fall apart, what you have is chaos. And chaos in Freville is never just chaos. Chaos in Freville is an opportunity for the town to take from you. And in episode 10, the town took Marielle. I have to be honest with you, I was not fully prepared for this. And I think that is the highest compliment I can pay to the writers of this episode, because they did not telegraph it in a way that let you brace yourself. They built the entire season around this massive underground mission, around the bone heist and the bottle tree and the monsters in the cavern, and then they put the most devastating moment of the finale in a clinic, quietly away from the main action, where we were not fully looking. And by the time we understood what was happening, it was already over. The earthquake dislodged the talisman. That is the mechanical explanation. The earthquake, caused by the uprooting of the bottle tree, knocked the protective talisman at the clinic loose, and without the talisman, the clinic was no longer protected. And Smiley, who has been one of the most terrifying presences this show has ever created, walked right in. And what happened next was brutal in a way that From does not do lightly. Smiley disemboweled Marielle, and she died in Christie's arms. And I want to sit here for a moment and talk about what that actually means. Not just as a plot event, not just as a consequence of the bone heist, but as a character moment, as a loss, because Marielle was not just a supporting character filling space in the background of this story. She was a real presence in Freville. She was someone who had been through everything this town throws at people and had kept going. She was someone Christie loved. And watching her die in Christie's arms in the place that was supposed to be safe, because of a talisman that was knocked loose by an earthquake that was caused by the plan that was supposed to save everyone, that is a level of tragic irony that this show has not hit quite this hard before. And what this does to Christie going into season 5 is something I keep turning over in my mind. Because Christie has always been one of the more quietly strong characters in Freville. She has held people together. She has kept the clinic running. She has been the person other people come to when they are falling apart. And now she has lost Marielle in the most violent, helpless way imaginable. She could not stop it. She could not protect her. And she was right there. She was holding her when it happened. And that kind of loss, the kind where you are present and completely powerless, has a way of changing people in ways that are not always visible on the surface but run very, very deep. I think Christie going into season 5 is going to be one of the most important characters to watch, not because of what she knows about Freville's mythology, but because of what she has now lost inside it. And this show has a history of taking grief and turning it into something that shapes the larger story in unexpected ways. Think about how loss has driven Boyd. Think about how loss has driven Tabitha. And now Christy has joined that group. The group of people in Freville who have had something taken from them so completely that the way they move through this town is never going to be the same again. And then there is the question of Smiley, because Smiley walking into that clinic was not random. Smiley did not stumble through an unprotected door by accident. The connection between Smiley and Fatima has been one of the most quietly unsettling threads of this entire season. And the fact that it was Smiley specifically who walked through that door and did what was done to Marielle feels intentional in a way that the show has not fully explained yet. What is Smiley? What does Smiley represent? What is the nature of the connection to Fatima, and what does it mean for where Fatima's story is going in Season 5? Because Fatima is still alive. And whatever is happening to her physically, whatever the Smiley connection is doing to her body and her mind, it is still unresolved. And now Smiley has taken a life inside the clinic. And that escalation feels like a signal that this particular thread is about to become a lot more central to the story going forward. Now let's talk about Sophia. Because everything I have been wondering about her all season, every question I had about what she really wanted and whose side she was actually on, and what she was willing to do to get what she was after, Episode 10 answered it. And the answer is worse than I thought. Not because Sophia is a monster in the traditional Freville sense, but because Sophia is something arguably more dangerous. Sophia is someone who understands exactly how this place works, and has decided to use that understanding against the people who are trying to fight it. She sabotaged the rope ladder. That is what she did. While Jade and Tabitha were underground, trusting that the way back up was going to be there when they needed it, Sophia removed that certainty. She did not need to go into the cavern. She did not need to face the monsters. She just needed to take away the one thing that was going to bring two people back to the surface. And in doing so, she left Jade and Tabitha stranded underground at the end of a season finale with no clear path to resolution. And I keep coming back to how calculated that move was. Because sabotaging a rope ladder is not an act of rage or impulse. It is a decision. It is something you think about, plan for, and execute at exactly the right moment. And Sophia chose her moment perfectly. She waited until the plan was already in motion, until everything was committed and there was no way to pull back, and then she made her move. Which means she was never on the side of the survivors. Whatever Sophia has been doing in Freville, whatever her actual goals are, they are not aligned with the people who want to break the cycle and go home. And that raises a question that I think is going to be one of the defining mysteries of Season 5. What does Sophia actually want? Because the people who benefit from the cycle continuing, the people who benefit from Freville staying exactly as it is, are not the survivors. So whose side is Sophia on? And what does that tell us about the larger structure of this place and who or what is actually in control of it? Because